If I could speak on embracing change in the age of AI. So actually this is a challenge for me because I've never spoken on AI before. It's definitely not my area of specialty. But before I start, let me just introduce myself. So my name's Andrew and I studied philosophy and theology. So that was my original degree. I then went on to study just theology and then later philosophy as well. But during my time in which I was in China for about 10 years. Then together with my friend from university, we founded an educational social enterprise. So we taught English, and the way in which we did it is that we worked in major cities and made money that would then enable us to go to the countryside to teach for free. Yeah, so in that sense, it was a social enterprise. So we weren't so much doing it for profit, although we had to make a profit, otherwise we wouldn't survive. Then I taught English at Beijing University for a couple of years. That was before coming back to Taiwan. And for past almost 10 years, actually, I've been a pastor at the Bilingual Community Church here in Kaohsiung. So that's my family, my wife, who I met in Beijing, and my daughter, who is now 9 years old, almost 10 years old, and my son, who is 2 years old, very naughty. In fact, he's recently fallen in love with another 2-year-old in his preschool called Hannah. And so if ever we say to him, so make sure that you're nice to Hannah, he'll say, Hannah. Okay, anyway. I didn't realize that 2-year-olds can actually fall in love, but anyway, so my daughter says that I am English, my wife is Chinese, and she is Taiwanese. So I guess we are an international family. But my dad actually, he's Taiwanese and my mom's English, and I grew up in Taiwan. So I grew up in a cross-cultural family myself. All right, so let me start with a story. And in fact, the story is about this question: what happens when a robot commits murder? So we're talking about AI, and robots is part of artificial intelligence. So what happens if a robot commits murder? Well, this is a story which I read, and I'd just like to share with you because I found it quite interesting. So, in a world where machines or robots had developed from being simple household devices into very advanced human-like robots, society created a new class. Robots or bots made for pleasure, work, and companionship without rights or legal protections. So this is sometime in the future, maybe in 10 years' time, maybe in 20 years' time, not sure. Anyway, maybe it's not too distant. So one company called Executive Pleasures made some of the most advanced bots called micromodels. These bots learned from experience and adapted to make their owners happy. They were even built to feel pain and pleasure. But people still treated them as objects, like toys for the rich. Legally, they were seen as properties, like machines with flesh-like skin. So let's see what happens in this one particular story. So today, he's a detective, was called to a small apartment because of a disturbance. I found a bot, Micah, sitting on the floor with blood on her hands, next to the body of her owner. I was the first detective on the scene. At first, I thought it was just a regular argument, but this was something else. Micah's eyes looked at me, both afraid and strong. A knife lay beside her, its blade dark with blood. The first few minutes were confusing as I tried to understand what had happened. Micah told me, simply and directly, that she had killed her owner. She seemed proud and ashamed at the same time, like she wanted to feel punished, to be real. In that moment, I reminded myself that bots don't get lawyers. They don't feel, they don't need. But Micah didn't seem just like a machine. She was sitting there like a person in a nightmare she couldn't escape. I thought about handcuffing her, but it felt strange. She was just property, technically. But then, property don't bleed. Property don't ask to be recognized. She looked up at me like a wounded animal. Does that mean you won't charge me with murder? She asked, her voice shaky. Her question surprised me. Could I even charge her with murder? If a machine acts on its own, is it broken or guilty? You're only software, I said, mostly to myself. She flinched, but I continued. You're a Micah model. You get new instructions every night. I don't get instructions, she replied, her voice strong. I learn. You learn too, detective. You learn to read people to see if they lie. You learn to solve crimes, right? Her voice had a challenging tone. You're trained to be a detective, but you become one, yes? Then why can't I be more than software? Because it's different. You were programmed. You were given a personality. She shook her head, sounding hurt. So were you. It's called DNA. You learn just like I learned, detective. Through experience and by people shaping who you are. A strange feeling ran through me. Like what she said was too true. My owner hurt me, she whispered, her voice breaking. I felt a bit of pity, but I stayed calm. She was just a bot. This shouldn't have been possible. I have skin, nerves, she continued. I feel pleasure and pain just like you, and he hurt me. But he said it wasn't real pain. He said I was fake. So I did something real. I made him see me. Her words stayed in the air, her eyes looking into mine, making me see of her as something more than a machine. Part of me felt drawn to her, felt guilty for the way she was treated, a thing made to feel, only to be used and forgotten. My phone buzzed and turned away, needing a distraction. My partner, Lyther, was on the line. I can't decide if this is murder or some kind of product issue, I told her. I don't know if she's a criminal or if she's just a broken product, Lyther replied. What's the bot saying? She says she keeps saying she killed her owner, I said, looking at Micah, now on the couch with her head down. And she keeps asking for a lawyer. Do I need to give her one? Lyther laughed. Our boss won't want to charge a bot. Can you imagine the news if he went to trial and lost? Then a woman walked in, a lawyer from Executive Pleasures. I'm Holly Sims, representing the Micah model, she said. Micah looked at her, and for a moment, her eyes seemed hopeful. I want a real lawyer, not a company lawyer. Holly sighed. Will you explain to her that she isn't a person? She's not even a pet. I was about to respond when Holly suddenly took a screwdriver from her bag and drove it into Micah's eye. Micah screamed, her body jerking, but Holly pushed the screwdriver deeper, her face calm, almost bored. What are you doing? I asked, horrified. I'm shutting her down her CPU, Holly replied, breathing a bit harder. It's better this way. If you leave them on too long, they start manipulating people. You can't just kill her. Not in front of me. Holly looked at me with pity. Not murder, detective. Just deactivation. And then the final scene. I stared at Micah's now motionless form, her eyes empty. My hands were shaking as Holly handed me a card. There's a recycling center, she said. They'll handle the disposal. Hold on, I said, grabbing her arm. You can't just walk out, not after this. She looked at me, almost amused. She got to you, didn't she? Made you feel important. That's what Micah models do. But it's all programming, detective. Let it go. In a quiet moment, I felt something close to grief, an ache I couldn't explain. Micah made me question everything about machines, about what it means to be real. I'd almost reached out to her, almost forgotten she was just a machine. But in the end, she was gone, her data likely already deleted, her existence erased, as if it had never mattered. And maybe that was the worst part, real or not. She had mattered. So, that's a made-up story, but there are some questions which perhaps we could be thinking about, especially as we enter into a world in which what I described could actually one day be reality. And maybe in 10, 20 years' time, you have robots in your house. that are very much like human beings. Maybe for some who live by themselves, your robot might be the person who you speak to more than anyone else. I mean, that kind of seems sad, but I guess for some it might be the case. So in that case, if robots are becoming more and more like humans, and in the story, then it seems that Micah the AI can actually feel, in a sense. Well, my question is this: do you think AI like Micah can actually feel emotions? Do you think they can really feel emotions, or are they just programmed to appear as if they can, get angry, be sad, be happy, etc.? Anyone think that they can actually feel emotions, or one day will be able to feel emotions? Anyone? No? Yes? Not sure? Micah claims that she feels pain just like people. So if so, should she have the right to protect herself, or is she just a machine? So if she can actually feel pain, then shouldn't she have a right to protect herself if the owner causes her pain? Well, these are just questions for you to think about. You don't have to answer them now. Or maybe some of these questions you can write in your piece of paper and then ask me later. So, how should we treat technology that seems almost human? Should we still continue to treat technology the way in which we always have? With your phone, if you don't like it, you just throw it in a bin, right? You can do whatever you like to your bicycle, it doesn't matter. But what if technology becomes more and more human-like? Can we just treat them however we want? And would you feel bad for a robot in pain or who felt scared? I mean, maybe it doesn't actually feel pain, but it looks as if it's in pain. Okay, imagine like a robot that looks human and is like crying out in pain, in agony, because you're hitting it. Or maybe because they're being just run over by a car. How do you feel? And then in the story, who's responsible when a robot or AI does something harmful? So if a robot kills the owner, then who is responsible for the killing? Is the robot him or herself? If an AI like Micah does something bad, is it her fault? Is it the creator's fault? So you go to the company and sue the company, or her own owner's fault, right? Because the owner was treating her badly, and so she responded, right? And in the story, how does the detective's view of Micah change throughout the story? So it seems at the beginning, he just treated her like she was, a machine. But by the end, he started feeling feelings, emotions towards her. By that time, she felt human, felt real. And why do you think he starts to see her as more than just a machine? What brought about the change? Why did he start seeing her as having real emotions, feelings? Maybe she just seemed to be so real in terms of what she was saying. But maybe she was just programmed to speak that way, right? Okay. So, why should we care about AI? Why should we care about AI? Why is it something which we're talking about in this class? So firstly, because AI is everywhere. From the apps on your phone to devices that you might have. AI shapes what we see and what we do. And it's growing fast. It's constantly changing. New advances are happening all the time. So what we are able to do with AI is getting faster and faster, better and better. And so it's shaping our future. AI affects how we learn, how we work, how we play. I don't know, how many of you have started using AI tools like ChatGPT? Most of you? Yeah. I find that it can be actually quite helpful sometimes, but also it can be misleading sometimes. You don't actually know whether or not the information on it is accurate. But still, how we are learning is being affected by AI, and also how we're playing is being affected by AI as well. So this is Li Haifu, AI researcher and author. He writes, AI will have a profound impact on society, reshaping the way we live, learn, and work. Its growth means it will be part of our futures, not just those of tech experts. So like 10, 20 years ago, then it's only tech experts who cared about AI. We hardly noticed it. But today, then more and more, everyone is using AI. I think if you have a cell phone, then most likely you have been using AI because that's part of the apps, even if you don't realize it. Like YouTube, Facebook, all uses AI. So what is AI really? So a simple definition, AI is technology that can learn, think, and sometimes make decisions like humans. So whereas in the past, then, you program something and it can only do what you programmed it to do. AI is different. AI is you program it, and it starts to learn and starts to improve by itself. So in other words, AI can get smarter and smarter and smarter without you actually giving it any input. It does so by learning from data. It improves by finding patterns. The way in which people speak, it learns from the way in which millions of people speak, and so it starts to speak like human beings. Or it learns how human beings think. It looks at all the data, like millions of bits of information, and find the patterns, which then it uses in order to appear as if it is able to think. And AI is acting like humans. It mimics some aspects of human thinking. So, for example, if you've spoken to, was it Siri on Apple? There's also Alexa, which is a machine, which I don't have, but my mom does. So every day she's talking to a machine now. So instead of talking to her sons, she talks to a machine instead, because the machine is always there. And they will speak, you'll talk back to you. You can say, hey, Siri, or in this case, Alexa, I'm feeling sad today. Can you play me some music? And it will find music that will fit your mood. Find you music that is suitable for when someone is sad. So it's like, oh, you really understand me. You understand me better than my husband does, right? In some cases. Our everyday AI examples, so social media feeds, shows you what you are most likely to enjoy. This is what I find. If I have just booked a holiday or a flight somewhere, then what happens on my Facebook page? I don't use Instagram, I only use Facebook actually. What happens is that if I booked a flight, let's say to Singapore, then pretty soon on my Facebook page, there'll be ads for Singapore hotels and entertainment, etc. I'm like, my goodness, you know exactly what I'm doing. And recommendations, like Spotify and Netflix, suggesting songs and shows that you might love. So for any of you who have a Spotify or Netflix, you know this. It will say recommendations, right? And it will come up with movies or shows based on your previous watching that they think that you're enjoying. Now, unless, of course, what my friend does, because my friend shares an account with like 3 or 4 other people, and so they all have different preferences, and so that really messes up the algorithm. So it doesn't really work if you have too many people using it, but if it's only your one account, then after a while, then it really knows what you like. There are virtual assistants. Siri and Alexa help answer questions and organize your life. So you can, actually my daughter likes to use Siri. So she's like, takes my phone and asks questions about, well, what's the population of America, for example. And sometimes with her homework, in fact, she asks, hey Siri, can you tell me the answer to this question? What is 500 million plus 347? Because that's in her book, right? So that's what she has to do in 4th grade. So Siri will tell her the answer to her math problems. I try not to allow her to do that, but hey, sometimes she gets my phone anyway. So the big impact of AI on society. So there are great opportunities. So with AI, then new careers. AI is opening doors in programming, so that's becoming more and more necessary, data analysis, and even in ethics as well. So quite a few of my friends, they are now studying AI ethics. Something which didn't really exist 20 years ago. But now they're giving talks around all around Taiwan, on how should we look at AI right and wrong and the morality of what we should allow AI to do. And it's really popular. They speak at universities, at companies, in front of government departments, etc. Creative Boost, it can help design music and writing by handling boring, repetitive stuff. Because a lot of times, then if you want to create a picture or a movie, there's a lot that is very boring details that you have to do. In the past, then you have to just do it yourself. But now, hey, with AI, you can let the AI do all the boring parts, and you can just do the creative parts instead. Better studying. AI-powered apps can make studying more personal and fun. So right now, I'm teaching my daughter English and helping her to write essays. But the problem is this. Many times, she doesn't know the words, and she doesn't know how to spell the words. So she wants to write an essay, let's say on panda bears. But she doesn't know a lot of the words that are necessary in order to write the essay. So what I do is I ask ChatGPT to give me words that a 9-year-old could use in order to write an essay on pandas. And the chat will give me all the words that could be used. And so I give those to my daughter and say, okay, there you go. Here are the words that you can use. Now you can write the essay. So it saves me having to think of words myself. Within like a minute, I can set her the assignment to help her to write the essay. And also similarly, in the past, then people would ask me to do translation work for them. And sometimes it would take a very long time. For some reason, they think that because I know Chinese and English, and so therefore I enjoy doing translation. I don't. But now, then, they send me the document. Usually it's in Chinese, and so instead of having to do it all myself, I just ask a chat to do it. And so within seconds, it's translated the whole thing. And then I read the English translation and just compare it to check that it hasn't made any stupid mistakes. And so I find that it has like maybe 95 to 99% accuracy. Right? So it's really simplifying my life. So it's nice because now I don't have to do the boring translations anymore. Challenges, jobs on the line. Some jobs could be replaced by AI. So creative skills will matter more than ever. So for example, then when you call a company and you need customer service, so in the past, then you just wait, and finally a human on the line would then answer your questions. But now it's different. Now half the time you're actually talking to an AI, right? And then, because most of the time, then the kind of questions that you ask is pretty standard. It's like, I have a problem with this product, how do I buy this? How do I get a refund, etc. So these are all common questions, and so the AI can handle it. So what does that mean? That means that you need fewer and fewer people in customer service. I talked about translation. So I was just translating at a conference last week. But then my wife afterwards, she showed me this program in which you can speak into it and instantaneously you get a translation. So I realized, oh dear, I'm not going to get paid to do translation work in the future. So even though I don't really enjoy it that much, occasionally I get paid to do it. But in the future, probably it'll be harder and harder for me to be able to find any kind of additional work, doing interpretation, because everyone just takes out their phone. I'm speaking in English, and hey, by the way, any of you who don't understand what I'm saying, you can just take out your phone and let your AI assistant translate into Chinese for you, and then you'll know what I'm saying, right? So you can do that. So what it means is that a lot of people who do translation and interpretation, they'll be out of business. Privacy issues. AI collects a lot of information about us. In fact, my phone, Facebook, YouTube knows me better than my wife, my children do. In terms of what I enjoy thinking about, researching, etc., etc. So that's the problem. So in other words, AI knows us better than most other people do. Then they can use the information about us to trick us. If they want to. Fake news. AI can create realistic but false content. So learning to fact check is crucial. So occasionally I get videos that are of famous people, like say Donald Trump, and it's of Donald Trump, saying something or dancing, and look at it and like, no, I think that's fake. But sometimes it can actually look quite real. So you actually have a famous politician who's giving a speech, but the entire speech is fake. So that's why it's so important for us to be able to check, what is, actual real content and what might be completely made up. So in what ways is change a good thing? So it's bringing huge change, the AI revolution, but it can be good and it can be bad. So there are ways in which change is good. Change brings about growth. It's essential for personal development. It challenges individuals to adapt, to learn, and develop new skills. So if nothing changes, then you don't need to learn anything new, right? But as soon as you experience change, I grew up in Taiwan and went to England, and everything was different. So now I needed to not just learn language, but the culture, the way in which people behaved. So those of you who are international students coming here to Taiwan, you've experienced this. But the good thing about change is that it forces you to learn. It forces you to develop new skills. There's also help in resilience. So facing change can build resilience, helping people to become more capable of dealing with future challenges. So if you can cope with change when you are younger, then as you get older, your experience of dealing with change in the past then will help you in the future. So the more you're able to adapt, it's like a muscle. The more you train it to be able to adapt to change, the more then you will be able to do so. So in that sense, then adapting to change is helpful for the future. There's opportunities. Change often brings new opportunities that wouldn't have arisen otherwise, such as career advancements. Sometimes you go to a different place, then you have the opportunity to maybe meet someone that you wouldn't have met before. I went to Beijing and I met my wife there. If I hadn't gone to Beijing, I wouldn't have met her, right? And also, there are job opportunities in some places that other places do not have. For example, that's why people go to Taipei, because opportunities there which Kaohsiung doesn't have, or Hong Kong or Singapore for that matter. A friend of mine, he was about to go into the police service in Kaohsiung, but his health wasn't that good. So we were wondering whether he would be really suitable to become a policeman in Taiwan, if he oftentimes struggled in his health. Then he decided to move to Singapore. And then in Singapore, he met his wife, who was a doctor. Wow, it really worked well for him. So actually, he has having a very different life in Singapore from how he would have been in Taiwan. Innovation. Change drives innovation and progress, leading to new inventions, services, and improvements in quality of life. So Brené Brown, she's a researcher and author. She's a psychologist. She said, without change, there can be no innovation, creativity, or progress. So it's because as we adapt to change that we are forced to innovate, to be creative, and to progress. Whether as animals do this, and especially human beings. So it also gives diversity of experiences. Change can add variety to life, providing new experiences. Otherwise, you go to the same restaurant, you go to the same hotel every time that you go on holiday. Then you might not have the different experiences that you might otherwise have if you try going to maybe try out a different cuisine. You always go for Japanese, maybe try Indonesian or Malaysian next time. Adaptation. Change is crucial for adaptation in a fast-paced world. Because the world is changing so quickly, we need to keep up. And then survival. On a biological level, change is fundamental for the survival of species. So species that survived are species that adapted to change. We know this from biology. But then, in what ways is change negative? Even though it can be positive, it can also be negative as well. So first, uncertainty. Change can create uncertainty, which may lead to anxiety and stress. So in a sense, then we are comfortable with not having to face change. Because whenever we change, then there's the uncertainty of what might then happen, because it's not predictable. And so there's anxiety and there's stress as always almost linked to change. And there's loss. Change often involves loss, whether it's a loss of job, a relationship, or a familiar way of life. And I'm sure many of you have experienced this. You leave your town, your city, or your school, and what happens to your friendships? When you graduate from high school, then you realize after a while that, oh dear, I don't have my high school friends anymore. I don't have my neighbors who I used to be friends with. So because I've moved many times, from Taiwan to England to Canada to China and then back to Taiwan, every time I've moved, then I've lost the friendships, most of them that I used to have. And you try to keep them, but after a while, then it's very hard with distance. Then disruption. Sudden change can disrupt established systems and routines, leading to confusion. I've experienced this when originally I was planning to do something, but then I realized that, oh no, the original place which was open, which I was going to go to, like for example, the bank, is closed today. And so in which case, I wonder what I'm going to do today, right now. Because I need to get this done, but now I can't get it done. Sometimes I feel, wow, I don't actually have a second plan B. Resistance. People, organizations often resist change due to fear of the unknown, potentially leading to conflict. And so in a same organization, if one person really wants to change things, but the others, then they would prefer if things stayed the same, then you can get conflict within the business or the family. So Daniel Kahneman, Nobel laureate in economics, he wrote, "Change often brings uncertainty, and with it, anxiety about the future." So that's why people often resist change, because of the uncertainty and anxiety that it brings. And in cost, change can be costly, requiring investment of time, resources, and energy to adapt to new circumstances. You might need to buy a new machine. You might need to buy a new phone. So in that sense, then change can cost. And obsolescence. Technological and societal changes can render certain skills, industries, and products obsolete. So, in the past, then you used to have DVD players, right? These days, then hardly anyone has a DVD player. Why? Because you can have everything online. So you don't really need all those DVDs. I still have hundreds. What I do with them, not quite sure. Well, I guess I'll throw them away someday. Then cultural erosion. Some changes can lead to erosion of cultural practices, languages, and traditions. We know this as many who leave their tribes and go into the cities, then they start to use the main language, for example, Mandarin or English or Spanish, and they don't speak their indigenous language anymore. And so after a while, after one generation, then there might be a loss of that language. Environmental impact. Certain changes can have negative environmental impacts, such as pollution or loss of biodiversity. All right, life is about change. Sometimes it's painful, sometimes it's beautiful, but most of the time it's both. So with change, then usually there's gain and there's loss. There's beauty and there's destruction. So some are better able to deal with change. So people react to change differently. It can depend on personality traits. Someone who has resilience, optimism, and openness to experience can make individuals more amenable to change. So sometimes it's people who have developed these skills, developed the ability to adapt to change, who are generally more optimistic about the future, who see change as a good thing rather than a bad thing. They are able to deal with it. Life experiences. Those who have successfully navigated change in the past may see changes as opportunities rather than threats. So that's where change early on can be good in the future. I think you guys are actually very fortunate because you are having to deal with the huge change in AI and development of AI when you are still at university. So right now you can be learning based on the future that you see AI bringing. But for those who were, say, studying 5 years ago, they didn't quite see the huge changes that AI was bringing. And so for them, then they can't adapt as quickly as you can. Because now then you can learn the skills that will be needed for the future. Support systems. Having a strong network of friends, family, or colleagues provides emotional support and practical help during times of change. That's where we need one another. Share with one another what are some of the struggles that you are having, Hearing that someone else is struggling in the same way as you do can be a huge comfort, even if it doesn't change anything outside. Or resources, access to resources, whether financial, educational, or societal, can provide a buffer against the negative impacts of change. Obviously, if you have a bit more skills that aren't replaced just because AI has replaced one skill, is helpful. So, for example, I might have a skill in translational interpretation, but it's helpful if I have other skills that won't necessarily be immediately replaced. And information, being well informed about the nature of change, can reduce uncertainty and make it easier to navigate. So we need to know what's happening. We need to be aware of the changes that happen in this world. And a sense of control, feeling a sense of control of being able to influence outcomes, can make change more tolerable and less intimidating. So focusing on what you're able to control, even if you can't control everything, at least there are certain changes that you can. It's not the strongest of the species that survive, nor the most intelligent, but the one most responsive to change. Charles Darwin, writing over 100 years ago, he had noticed this with animals, or with all species, but it's still true today when it comes to confronting the changes brought about with AI. So, coping with AI changes. How should we cope, more specifically? Well, firstly, stay open to learning. AI and technology are constantly evolving, so being open to learning new skills help you adapt. That's something I had to do just in the past year or two, realizing that certain things which I used to do now, I used to do myself, but actually can be done far, far quicker using AI. And so that's something I learned. Like all the pictures that you saw at the beginning were all AI generated. In fact, this whole story that I shared with you at the beginning, it's adapted from a book, but a lot of the details were changed. It was actually AI that helped me make the changes. Otherwise, it would have taken me a long time to write the whole story myself. Remember that change is a normal part of life, and everyone goes through it. So we're all faced with the change that AI is bringing. And it's not just one or two of us. No, everyone is. So in that sense, we're all in the same boat. But how we adapt to it will be different. So Alvin Toffler, a futurist, so he predicts what will happen in the future. He writes, "The illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read and write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn." So just being able to read and write won't be enough in the 21st century. For one thing, most of the time you can just speak and AI will write it for you anyway. So is reading and writing as important now as it was 50, 100 years ago? No. But there are other skills which we need to learn, which will be more important in the 21st century. So it's just a matter of learning these, but then maybe you learn it, and then 5 years later, your AI replaces that skill. What do you do then? Then you need to learn new skills. Stay positive about the future. Focus on the ways AI can improve life, like making tasks easier and creating new jobs. So yes, with changes, there's always good and a bad. But by being positive, by focusing more on the good, by considering how much more convenient life will be with AI, that's a good way to adapt to the change. Avoid only thinking about the negatives. Change can bring many good things too. So it's having a positive mindset that helps us to adjust when changes come. And then accept uncertainty. It's normal to feel uncertain about the future with AI, but not knowing everything is okay, because no one knows the future as far as AI is concerned. Because that's the thing with AI, it constantly improves itself, not controlled by human beings. And so no one can predict with certainty what AI will be doing in 5 or 10 years' time. One historian, Yuval Harari, he describes AI today as like an amoeba. So if AI right now is only at a stage of an amoeba, then what will AI be like in 10, 20, 30 years' time? It might be kind of scary. But that's where we need to accept that, yes, it will be a very different world. But that's okay. Practicing acceptance can reduce stress and help you feel more in control. So just accept that we don't know. But then, we can always work on the things that we do. Like, for example, building resilience. Try to view challenges as opportunities to grow stronger and learn. So if you find that maybe the original job that you want to go into is no longer accepting applicants because most of the work is done by AI, well, that's a great challenge to learn new skills, to consider a different job. Learning to bounce back from setbacks will help you handle changes in life, including those brought by AI. So now is a good time for you to learn and grow and change, because as I mentioned, it helps you to grow in resilience, which then will be helpful for you all your life. The greatest glory in living lies not in never falling, but in rising every time we fall. So Nelson Mandela, who I think he spent like 27 years in prison, but hey, he then went on to win the Nobel Peace Prize and transform the nation. So he knows something about falling, but he also knows a lot more about rising as well. And seek support. Talk to friends, family, or teachers if you feel stressed about the future. If you're really not sure about what's going to happen in the future, then talk to someone else who also doesn't know what's going to happen in the future. And at least you can be worried together. But usually what happens is that when you find someone else who's also worried, then at least you can be comforting one another. And actually you end up feeling better as a result. Even though nothing's changed, just having someone else who understands how you feel can be helpful. You're not alone, and sharing worries can make them feel smaller as well. Navigating AI changes. So what practically can we do in order to better prepare ourselves for the change that AI will bring? Develop critical thinking. Learn to question information you see online or on social media. So just because you see a video that someone has said something, have a look and check. Is this actually accurate? If it's just something that's being given to you by a friend, maybe online or a YouTube video, and it seems outrageous, then fact check it. Go online and check whether or not this has reliable sources to it as well. Being a smart thinker will help you make better decisions in a tech-driven world. So this is where we need to be checking everything that we are receiving, especially when you depend upon AI, because oftentimes AI makes mistakes. There's one time when I asked AI to write something for me, and then I sent it to my brother and asked him to give me feedback. What do you think about what I had written? I didn't tell him that it was AI that had written it. And what he then did is he then sent it, because it was something related to history. And then he sent what I had asked AI ChatGPT to write to his friend, who was a professor of history at Cambridge University. And his friend sent him an email back and said, many of the books that are mentioned in this do not exist. Why? Because Chat had basically made up books that do not exist, and I hadn't checked it. So it's okay. I mean, I sent it to my brother. I mean, he can think I'm stupid. But the problem is that my brother then sent it to his friend who was a professor at Cambridge University. So now you have a Cambridge professor thinking that my brother is stupid. Or he probably said, oh, it's my brother, he said that to me. So he now thinks I'm stupid. So anyway, don't make that kind of mistake. If you never know, who might be reading what you're writing. Make sure that you fact check and don't get caught out like I did. As AI systems begin to filter what we see, the ability to question, analyze, and critically evaluate becomes a survival skill. So it's so easy to produce content now. You can make up a story within like half a minute. But if you want to produce something which is going to be accurate and helpful, oftentimes you need to check it. You need to be able to analyze. You need to evaluate it. So that becomes more and more important than just producing the basic information in the first place. Because now AI can produce infinite amount of information. Information itself is not valuable. Good, accurate information is. Then gain tech skills. Try learning basic coding, understanding how AI works, and practical digital skills. If you are more technically minded, then do more research. Learn as much as you can. the more you know about technology, the better prepared you'll be for AI-related careers. Because the chances are is that in the future, then whatever job you do, you'll probably need to use AI as part of the job. So get familiar with it even now. Then focus on people skills. Skills like empathy, teamwork, and communication will always be important. Because AI can never have empathy. It can pretend, it can speak in a ways that sound as if it understands what you're saying or understands how you're feeling. But, I mean, it can't in the end. And so these are skills which AI can't replace, or they can't replace easily. Practicing these human skills make you valuable no matter how much technology changes. Because AI can never become completely human. And so the more human you are, the more you are at an advantage compared to AI. Machines can be programmed to do almost anything, but they cannot feel. Empathy, teamwork, and emotional intelligence are uniquely human strengths. Saying that CEO of Microsoft. I think probably the CEO of Microsoft knows what they are talking about. But when they say that these are things which machine cannot do. So the more that we do what machines cannot do, the more of an advantage we are compared to machines. Okay, almost finished. Learn flexibility, open to different careers and learning paths since AI might change traditional jobs. And being flexible can make it easier to adapt to new job opportunities and roles created by AI. So you might just have to switch plans from plan A to plan B to plan C, as plan A has been replaced by AI. But the sooner you do that, the better. In the future, it's not the strongest or smartest who will survive, but those most adaptable to change. Leon Wilkinson, management theorist. Okay, I think I'll stop here because it's the end of class. So then it'll be over to you to come up with your questions or any thoughts that you have. All right, thanks for listening.